dogs and cats do not get along. Sometimes they do. In this case, they do not on the college football field. The Dogs of Georgia crush the Cats of Kentucky, 51-13. Beck and Bowers providing plenty of offense for Georgia. 28-35, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, an interception. And Brock Bowers, arguably the best player in the nation, who won't win a Heisman, but will be a high draft pick come next NFL draft. 7 catches, 132 receiving yards, and a touchdown. His 3rd straight 100-yard receiving game as Georgia's offense finally gets going. 6th game into the season. They have now won 23 straight games. Here in studio with former NFL vet, Douzable. Look, we had been asking Georgia to show up. Yeah. We saw them struggle against Auburn. We saw them struggle against South Carolina. Now they come back home against a good Kentucky team, undefeated, and they flex their muscles. What'd you see?
Literally what you said. I think we had all been waiting for Georgia to kind of flex their muscle. They kind of millied through the first half of the South Carolina game. Like you said, the same thing with the Auburn game. And when they needed to get going, I don't know what Coach Kirby Smart said to them at halftime. They came out firing in all cylinders. Well, they didn't wait for halftime versus Kentucky today. They're like, we're going to put the game in Carson Beck's hand. And boy, Hakeem, did he have a game. Throwing for over 380 yards and 4 touchdowns. Did have that 1 interception where I felt like he was pressing just a little bit too much. But what I really liked was the coaches instilled confidence in this quarterback, because those other games we talked about, South Carolina, Auburn, it was kind of run by committee in that game. And then when they needed Carson Beck to make plays in the second half, he found Brock Bowers. But he went to Brock Bowers early in this game and got the tight end going early in this game. So I love how the coaches instill confidence in Carson Beck. You're going to need this type of play for him if you want to be able to be a 3-peat champion.
Brock Bowers, if you saw him during your NFL days, what would you think of him as a player in the league? Because right now, he's a man amongst boys.
Well, Hakeem, you said, he probably won't win the Heisman. Why not?
Well, that is a quarterback award.
It is, but I mean, it's been a running back award before. And it's been a receiver award.
Caleb Williams looks like he's on his way to winning a second one. Should be the first time since Archie Griffin.
True, I mean, but it also depends on USC's schedule. They got some big games coming down.
They do,
so
but
Georgia,
that's who, right? And you got
Georgia
Michael Penix too.
Undefeated, and we keep seeing Brock Bowers dominate week in and week out. I mean, the Auburn game, literally, Hakeem, he took over that game in the second half.
He did.
He's the reason they won that game. So
4th quarter, he was awesome.
He is the best player on the best team in the country right now, because you still have to say Georgia's the best team because they are the #1 ranked team in all of football. And a lot of people thought this game was going to be a lot closer, myself included, but you saw them flex their muscle versus Kentucky, and he is the best player on that team. So why not? Why can't a tight end win the Heisman if he continues to be the best player on the best team in the country?
Also, the ground game really got going in this game. A lot of different guys getting involved. That sort of was what they wanted to get back to, and they did. Obviously, it opens up the game, the passing game, and that's what they did. The game plan worked well for Georgia. What went wrong for Mark Stoops and the Cats?
For one, it was the turnovers that they had, and then penalties, just like mind-boggling penalties. Hakeem, there's times where they, on 3rd down, get off the field on defense, and then you get a personal foul for a lay hit. That makes absolutely no sense. They stay ahead of the chains on run games, right? Then you get a penalty by a guard slinging and throwing somebody to the ground. So, like, boneheaded penalties is what killed Kentucky in this game, and a few turnovers, but it was the penalties early in the game. They just could not overcome that lead that Georgia built up because of the penalties that hurt them early in the game.
Well, and I know you like this because Ray Davis was coming off a career game where he had 280 yards on the ground, which was incredible. We knew that he wasn't going to duplicate that. But shouts to the Georgia defense that hold him to just 59 yards.
And that's the thing, like, styles always make fights, right?
Yeah.
And the Georgia defense does a really good job of muddying up the run and slowing down the run. Now, they've struggled as far as getting to the quarterback, and there's been some quarterbacks that have had success throwing the football. So you kind of felt like this was a style matchup that favored Georgia going into this game. Now, Kentucky was probably thinking Auburn last week was a running team, Hakeem, and they ran the ball well versus Georgia. So, Sugar Ray Davis coming off 280 yards, you think he's going to go have a field day. But I think the Georgia defense came together and was like, we cannot have a repeat of what we had last week with Auburn. We know this guy is the focal point of their offense. Let's take him out of the game. Devin Leary has not played well for the Wildcats this year. Let's make him a passer. Let's see if he can beat us, and he simply couldn't.
Well, we had talked about this Georgia schedule, and we looked at it saying, okay, there's not a whole lot of resistance, but now we've seen teams improve, and as you look at their next 5 games, Georgia here on the right side of your screen, they got Vanderbilt, Florida coming up, but then you got a good Missouri team who looks really good, and I know that they lost to LSU on this day. Ole Miss can score 60 if they want, and Tennessee is a one-loss team that's still going to provide plenty of resistance in Knoxville. So this schedule rest away is still really tough.
Yeah, the back half of that schedule is where the meat of the bone is as far as what Georgia's schedule looks like. You would think they win against Vanderbilt and also Florida. But that last game at Tennessee, and we know this isn't the same Tennessee team as last year, but you know that's like a rival game. That's going to be a hard game to win. You also talked about the Ole Miss game in Mizzou. Last year, they got a real scare from Mizzou up in Missouri. This time they get them at home in Sanford Stadium. So I think Georgia will take care of business. But that Tennessee game, right, all the marbles will be on the table. They win that game, they most likely will be playing in the SEC championship game versus a team we saw earlier, today that played really well, Alabama.
Yep, Alabama getting a big win on the road against Texas A&M. Georgia's now won 14 straight meetings against Kentucky. By the way, are you a dog lover or a cat lover more?
I'm not a big animal person, but more of a dog. If I had to choose, it would be a dog. Dog for sure.
Well, the Dogs get it done on this day at home. 51-13. They easily cover, and they take care of business on their home field. As we take a look at both teams' upcoming schedules, Kentucky still in a dogfight coming up. They're going to take on the Tigers, followed by Tennessee and Alabama. Georgia, a couple games on the schedule coming up. Those are winnable games. Then they've got a tough test against Missouri, Ole Miss, those games at home before traveling to Tennessee on the road on November 18th.